Awesome. There we go. So thank you everyone for attending, and we may have some people who hop in later. Just so you know, this meeting is being recorded. So if you don't want to be, shown in the recording, you shouldn't be. But if you do have your camera on and you speak up at any point, then you might be captured in that recording. So all of this will be available after the fact. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask throughout or put them in chat and we will take care of those questions. So welcome. This is an info session over the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship. You registered, so hopefully you knew that already. And what our goal here today is we're just going to give you an overview of the Gilman Scholarship, what it takes to apply, and then Emily's going to give you some really helpful tips and tricks to making your application stand out and making it the best it can be. So just to get started here, some quick introductions. I'm Olivia Ellis. I am an advisor in the UK Education Abroad and Exchanges Office, and I'm also our scholarships coordinator. Now, you're going to work with me potentially in a couple of different ways, but if you are in the colleges of communication and information, design, engineering, fine arts, or nursing, then I will be your main contact in education abroad for everything. And that's Gilman, that's our scholarships, that's any program abroad you might want to look at, anything like that. And my email is on here, olivia.ellis@uky.edu. Feel free to send me a message anytime you need. And even if I'm not your advisor based on college, you can still reach out to me with your questions, and I'm more than happy to connect you with the right person. And I'll let Emily introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Sally, and I work in the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards. And our office works with students who are applying for awards and scholarships and fellowships and basically funding outside of UK. So the Gilman Scholarship does fall under one of the awards that we work with. We have 13 awards that we work with that are basically endorsed through UK, so that you have to go through our office to apply for those. But we also work with any other award that students are interested in. So the Gilman Scholarship is considered a direct application award. So that means you can go through and apply for the Gilman Scholarship without going through our office, but we are always available for help and guidance and feedback throughout that application process.
Now, before we get into Gilman, I don't want to make any assumptions about you all and your knowledge of education abroad and what we do and what abroad even means. So a lot of people simply call us the Study Abroad Office. So we are the people at UK who help facilitate your desires, your plans, your goals to maybe take classes in another country. We also work with students who want to study at a different university here in the US for maybe just a semester or a summer, but I'm not going to get into that today because we're focused on international travel. So programs or courses and internship in a different country somewhere else in the world. Now, I mentioned earlier that education abroad advisors advise by college. So you've seen mine, and if you aren't in one of my colleges, I've put the link on here and we'll send it out to everyone. But you can easily see on our website who your UKEA advisor is. We've only got 4, so there's not a ton to pick from. And like I said, if you aren't sure, you can always message me and I'll get you to the right person. Now, along with advising you and helping you figure out what classes to take abroad, where you might want to study, when, all of those things, we also have our own pool of scholarship funding that we use to help students go abroad. Now, the really cool thing is that all of our scholarships stack. So as we talk about Gilman and some other related awards, you could consider that as just in addition to what you could get from UKEA or vice versa. So a student from our office, and especially if you're Pell eligible, because Gilman is for Pell eligible students, could get up to $2,000 to begin with. Like that's pretty standard for a Pell eligible student who applies for our scholarship. So when you're going abroad, it's important to look at more than just one scholarship source, more than one funding source. And we have a really great opportunity to award students on our side of things to help make this financially possible. So another question that we get a lot is, well, will it count? Does it matter if I go abroad? Yeah, if you go abroad, we're going to help you take courses that will count here at UK. Those credits will transfer back in. They're going to be on your UK transcript. They're going to get you that much closer to graduation. So, yes, you can earn academic credit outside of the US. And if this is a bit overwhelming, and not just the Gilman application, but going abroad in general, whether you're going to Canada or you're going to South Korea, wherever you want to go, our office is here to support you through that entire process. So before you decide what program, while you're applying to it, while you're abroad, and even when you come back to the US. So don't feel like you would be going at any of this alone. Usually you just got to reach out to us and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or hey, I have no idea where to start or where to go. Can you guide me? We're more than happy to help with that. But now into the heart and real reason of why we're here, the Gilman Scholarship. Now I know there's a lot of words on this page, so just bear with me. I'm not going to read through them all. But what is Gilman, the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship? So this is a scholarship offered by the U.S. Department of State. So it is a government-funded scholarship program. It is intended to help students do a study or internship program abroad, but it can also be used on virtual programs, meaning if you don't want to go abroad, you want to stay here in the US for whatever reason you might want to stay, you can still do a program virtually abroad, do an internship in London, England, while you're taking a class on campus this summer. Totally possible, and Gilman can help fund that. Now, Gilman also has some additional like supplemental scholarships to help with your endeavors. And one of those I'll mention briefly in a moment is for critical language studies. So they do have a list of key languages that are really important to the United States development and national security. So if you're studying a specific language abroad, they can also help fund that on a top of Gilman. Now, Gilman works really intentionally to serve specific groups of students, and the primary group is those with financial needs. So you do have to be Pell Grant eligible in order to apply for the Gilman Scholarship. But beyond the Pell Grant, it also preferences veterans, first-gen students, STEMs, students with disabilities or accessibility needs, and those representing populations and ethnicities that are often underrepresented in education abroad. And that is a wide-ranging and changing group of students. So if you ever aren't sure, you can always ask, but you should always just apply. So there is a little bit of preference given, but I've reviewed for this scholarship, and I can let you know that it's not, if you don't feel like you fit into one of these categories, don't count yourself out. You should still apply as long as you meet that Pell Grant requirement. Now, this is a really competitive selection process, so not every student will get awarded, but awards can be up to $5,000 for those who are. Okay, I saw a question in the chat, and Emily's already answered that. So Asia, check there, and that should help you out, but if you still need anything, let me know. Now, this is kind of a post-award piece of information. If you're selected for a Gilman Scholarship, you get some priority eligibility in hiring in the federal government. Sorry, it's like weird ways to word it. But for 12 months after your award, after your program, you will be able to apply for a government job with just a resume. And a lot of other people who apply have a lot of other elements they have to add on to that. And it's not guaranteed that you will get a job, but it is a much easier path into government work, into different agencies. Kind of depends on what you are interested in, but it's a really easy step forward. Now, one thing I did forget to mention for that award, some students might ask, okay, well, what can I use that on? Pretty much anything. You can use it on your program cost, on your tuition, room and board, travel, pretty much anything. So you do have to kind of give Gilman a bit of an update on what you're using that on, but it's really up to you because they want you to use it where you need it. Now, along with Gilman, like I said, they have a couple other like tag-on scholarships. So one of them is the Critical Need Language Award. I've put the link on here, and you can always Google Gilman Scholarship Critical Need Languages to see exactly what these languages are. But if you are studying one of these specific languages in need, you can earn up to an additional $3,000 with your Gilman Scholarship. So that could be a total of $8,000. Once again, not every student is awarded, but it's one of those where you should apply. If you fit this criteria, apply. I promise you a couple hours of work now is worth getting a couple more dollars down the road. I've put the deadline on here. You're going to see a theme with March 2nd, so I'm just going to keep moving forward and we'll get to that in just a moment. Another scholarship launched by the Gilman Scholarship Program is the Gilman McCain Scholarship. So this is a $5,000 award for undergraduate students who are dependents of active duty service members. So this is fairly new, I believe, but this is a really fantastic opportunity to get abroad and to have some funding because some current veteran affairs benefits aren't the most flexible for going abroad, but this scholarship in particular can provide you a lot of flexibility with where you go and when. Now, so for that McCain scholarship, you obviously have to be a veteran, a dependent of an active duty veteran. Sorry, active duty service member. But in general, eligibility is pretty basic. For the Gilman Scholarship, you need to be a citizen of the United States, an undergraduate in good standing. And if you don't know what that means, you can ask your academic advisor for your academic standing. They should be able to help with your financial standing as well, but you do have a financial aid counselor who can help. You need to be receiving a federal Pell Grant during the time of application and the term of going abroad. If you don't know if you're Pell Grant eligible, your financial aid counselor can help you answer that question. If you don't fill out the FAFSA, you will not know. So please fill out the FAFSA. It is a critical piece in funding any program abroad. It's a critical piece in funding your studies at UK. You must be going on a program of at least 3 weeks, which is 21 days in Gilman terms. And this programs, like I said, can be you going abroad to take classes or do an internship or staying in the US and doing one of those opportunities virtually. So don't get overwhelmed with what kind of program you want to do just yet. You can always come chat with me, but we'll have to move a little bit quickly because of the upcoming deadline. You have to do a credit bearing program. We make sure that's happening, so don't worry too much about that. And then the country must have a travel advisory level 1 or 2 from the State Department. COVID's kind of throwing a hitch in things though, so if it's a level 3 or 4 due to COVID only, it's still eligible. Just come chat with your EA advisor and we can help you work through those logistics. Now, when you're ready to apply, Gilman does a really great thing where they give you all of the application information before you click apply now. So you can go ahead and see what's required and start kind of prepping your essays or prepping your thoughts before submitting anything. So you do have 2 essays, a statement of purpose, which is probably what you expect. You know, what are your goals? What are your intentions? Why are you going here? Why are you going here instead of somewhere else? And all of those kind of questions. And then your community impact statement, which is kind of unique to Gilman. So that's going to be an essay where you talk about how your involvement abroad is going to be reflected back in your community. And that could be UK, that could be your hometown. I've reviewed essays that were awarded and it specifically talked about their church community. So this is what community is to you and what you are going to do to bring back your international experience and help your community. So online, they'll have all of those prompts. They'll have any word or character restrictions. So that's where you can go ahead and start thinking about it, because thinking about it now is going to make it easier when you're ready to write in a week or so. You'll also need to submit your transcript or transcripts. So if you did transfer universities, you'll usually have to upload all transcripts that are related. And then an interesting piece here, this isn't something you have to do explicitly by yourself, but there's an advisor certification that has to happen. So what you do in your Gilman application, you will have to select who is your financial aid counselor and who is your education abroad advisor. I've put links here, and like I said, when we send this out, you can check them then. You can also Google UKY financial aid counselor or UKY education abroad and find either or. But you will select that person, and then we'll get an email that says, hey, Asia selected you, please go in and certify that everything's accurate and that they are eligible for this award. So like I said, you don't have to do anything specifically for this other than just pick the right person. And if you don't pick the right person, we can update it on our end. because I can see everybody's, but I only certify those who select me as their advisor. Now, we've been hinting at this. There's an upcoming deadline. So the Gilman, CLS, and McCain scholarships are all due at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So the West Coast, or Pacific, is that Hawaii? Get it done by midnight Eastern, all right? Don't wait until 2, 3, 4 a.m. Get it done by midnight Eastern on March 2nd, 2021. This will apply to any programs that are in this coming summer, this coming fall, this coming winter, so like December-ish, remember? And then this upcoming spring, so spring 2022. So it's a pretty big group. Now, if you're like, this is way too fast, I'm not ready, I have no idea where I want to go, what I might want to study, and I don't have the time or energy to think about that right now, I get it. We all get it. You have another deadline coming up on October 12th. And now that won't apply to this coming summer or fall, but you'll be able to look at this coming winter and then next year's, so 2022, spring, summer, and fall. So plenty of time for that second deadline. Everything for this scholarship is online. Gilmanscholarship.org. Super easy. And as soon as you get to their webpage, it says right on the front, apply now. Here's the deadline. And they've got some really useful tabs at the top that can show you more about each essay, about each deadline, the process, when you'll get notified of the award decisions, and so on. So this is a really brief introduction to Gilman and to these other awards, but I hope it at least gives you a sense of direction. If you have any, I'm going to pass off to Emily in just a second for those tips and tricks, but if you have any questions about this, reach out to me, reach out to Emily, reach out to your education abroad advisor. We've all worked with students on this scholarship application, and we've had students get awarded. So we are here to help you, and all you got to do is reach out and say, help me a little bit, please. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass it over to Emily. But if you all have any questions, like I had said earlier, you can put them in the chat and I'll answer them as I'm going, or if Emily's the right person, then she'll answer them as she's going. But thank you. That's my section. Emily, off to you.
Okay. Can you all see my screen okay? Perfect. Okay. My slides are not as pretty as Olivia's, so I apologize. But again, my name is Emily Sally. I work with the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards. I was going to start with the application components, but Olivia has pretty much covered that, I believe. One thing that I did want to just let you all know is that those certifications from your study abroad and your financial aid advisors, they have an extra week beyond that March 2nd deadline to do that. So we are knocking on the door of March, which is hard to believe. So, but you have until March 2nd to actually fill out your application. And then those advisors have a week after that to go in and certify. So don't feel like you have to have all of that done by March 2nd, because that would be a lot. And then also, as you can see, you do have to write a couple of essays for the Gilman application. We're going to go over those in just a second. So this is not something that you want to wait until the last minute to do, because this is something that you will want to write these essays, review them. We're going to talk in just a second about how it's very, very important to have someone proofread those. So if you are planning to apply for that March 2nd deadline, I would go ahead, look at the Gilman website and kind of check out what you need and make sure that you're ready to go in terms of that application. All right.
And Asia asked, will those links be posted or sent to us within the recorded meeting for the certifications? Asia, the link to request the certification is in the Gilman application. So as you apply, there'll be a drop-down menu and you pick the name of the person you want to send it to, and then we'll get an email with it. So there's no extra place you need to go to request those.
Thank you so much.
And if you have follow-up questions after this feel free to reach out to either one of us. In terms of some application tips, these are kind of some general tips in terms of just applying for applications in general. And then some of these obviously are specific to the Gilman application. In terms of Gilman, they have three essays essentially that you end up having to complete. And they all have, like Olivia said, they all have limits on how many words you can use and those types of things. And a lot of these application, the software that they use might not necessarily have kind of the processing that we're used to in our Word document. So spell check, word count, those kind of things. So I always encourage students to compose your essays in a Word document. Make sure that you have everything spell checked and taken care of. That Word document can look at your grammar. Make sure you do that and then put it in the application after you have everything taken care of. The other thing that can be a little tricky is that the Gilman system does time out after a certain amount of time. It's quite a long time, but if you're like me and you get distracted easily and you are in an application and you're just writing your essay and then you go to get a drink of water and then something else catches your attention and you get distracted and you come back, Gilman might have actually logged you out and lost all that work. So just make sure that you have those in a Word document and saved and ready to go. That's also a good way to send your essays to someone to help you proofread and all of that as well. You have a limited number of words that you can use in your Gilman essays. So, excuse me, you want to make sure to make every sentence count. So I think a lot of times when we are in school and we're kind of learning in terms of writing flow, we have those situations where we're used to kind of writing that intro paragraph that kind of describes what we're going to talk about and then kind of go through the meat of our argument and then kind of wrap up at the end. A lot of times in these essays, you don't really have a lot of room for that. So you want to make sure that every single sentence that you're saying is important and helping your case in terms of why you deserve this Gilman Scholarship. And something that I think is really helpful is if you read a sentence, you can think to yourself, could this apply to any country? Could this apply to any study abroad program? So if your sentence is, I want to go to Spain to learn more about a different culture. That's great, and it's true, obviously. But you could also say that about France. You could also say that about Brazil. So you want to make sure that you go into those examples and details more so than those kind of more vague answers that way. Something that's also very important is be sure to answer the questions in the prompt. Because a lot of times students, if you have kind of a personal statement that you've used in another application, you may think, oh, there's a statement of purpose for the Gilman application. I'm just going to use the one that I used for this other application. You want to make sure that you are answering those questions that they are asking you, because the people that are going to review for those essays are going to probably have a very specific kind of scoring process and rubric that they're looking at to make sure that you are answering those questions that they are asking. So make sure that you are intentional about answering what they ask. Have your essays proofread. This is something that our office obviously can help you with. We have 2 staff members in our office, and we have both reviewed for Gilman before several times. And so we are happy. We kind of know what they're looking for. We're happy to proofread for you. If for some reason you don't want to go through our office, that's completely fine. Like Olivia said, education abroad advisors can read your essays. Professors can read your essays. Just make sure you have at least one, maybe even 2 or 3 people read through your essays, because it is so easy to, when you're reading through something, to not realize that you're kind of missing something that's important, or, a lot of times we have words that may not mean exactly what we think they mean, those kind of things. So just have somebody read through that application and make sure that you are good to go. And you can reach out to me directly and send me your essays, and I am happy to read them. And also I have another staff member that can help us as well. And then make sure that you are creative. This application is completely what they are going to use to determine whether or not you get this money. You don't get to go on and do an interview, you don't get to speak to anybody afterwards. And so make sure that you are really explaining who you are and why they should think about giving you this funding for your study abroad. All right. Okay, so just quickly, we'll go through the essays that that you are required to complete for the application. On the left, you'll see the questions that are specific to the statement of purpose essay. So, how will studying or interning abroad help you achieve your future academic or professional goals? Why did you select your program and country? How are you academically prepared to be a successful scholar? And examples of knowledge, skills, and experiences that you can draw on to meet the challenges of going abroad. This is where you want to be very, very specific about how both the program that you chose and the location that you chose will help you in your future academics and your future professional life. A lot of times this is super easy. If you want to be a high school French teacher and you're going to France to work on your French, that's an obvious connection. But you kind of want to make that thread. If you are going to Spain to study marketing because you are a business major, you may need to be a little bit more specific about why you chose Spain. And so that is very, very important. And a lot of times when I was reading through Gilman applications, the study abroad program, that's a lot of times what people talk about, and that makes a lot of sense. You picked this program for a particular reason, but a lot of times students don't necessarily talk about why they picked the country that they picked, right? And so make sure that that is included in your essay as well. And then also you want to give some specific examples about how you met challenges of kind of adjusting to something new. So that last question there, examples of knowledge, skills, and experiences that you can draw on to meet the challenges of going abroad. Sometimes people are pretty vague about this. It's just, I have, the example I gave here was when I adjusted to life in college, it was hard, but I did it. And that's great, but you definitely want to give some examples of how you did that. So did you join some particular clubs that you were interested in? Did you make a goal to meet a new person every day? Kind of those specific examples are very, very important and make your application stand out. Sorry, I lost my mouse here.
Can I add something to that real fast?
Absolutely, please.
Just building on what Emily has just said, if you think that you're reading, especially that last question, you're like, well, my experience isn't really extraordinary in any kind of way, that's okay. Even if for you, the idea of adjusting to life in college, maybe that is a really big change in your life, or maybe for you, that's not a big thing you've had to overcome. It's all about your perspective and, like Emily said, how you apply it. So, just saying I had to adjust to life in college as a first generation student. Okay, thank you. But the reviewers need to know a little bit more. Why was that difficult? And there may be I've read applications where students come in with things like they lost both of their parents in a car wreck the summer before they started college. Don't compare yourself to that. Don't worry about other people's experiences. Think about your own and how you've overcome them. Because a lot of students that I've worked with will get really caught up in, oh, well, my examples or my goals or whatever aren't good enough. And they are. You just have to develop why it's good for you, why it's your story. So really try not to worry about other people's and whose might be more interesting or more intense than yours. It's all about yours and you making your claim, because we aren't comparing your application to another student's. We're looking at your application and how well you answer the essay questions. So don't compare yourself to others, and ask for help if you can't articulate what you want to articulate.
That's great. I also think that is a good thing to point out, is that when we are reviewing for Gilman, they very specifically say, do not compare this one application to the other. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that Gilman really prefers that, and this doesn't mean that if you have gone abroad that you won't be awarded a Gilman. That's not what I'm saying at all. But Gilman really prefers giving those opportunities to students to go abroad who have not gone abroad previously. So, you might sit there thinking, well, I don't know how I would just adjust to going abroad. I've never been able to be abroad, to go abroad. And that's completely fine. That is something that they are looking at in terms of wanting to give you that opportunity. So like Olivia said, just think about you, your experiences, and kind of how you have overcome a challenge. And you can definitely include that in that essay. Then you also will do a section of the application that's called Building Mutual Understanding, and there are two parts of this. The first one, Gilman's, one of their main goals is sending students abroad who will be positive representatives of the United States, and that there will be this idea of mutual exchange, mutual understanding. So you will meet people in a different country and they will learn more about the United States. And in turn, you will meet people from a different country and you will learn more about their country. So that's what this essay is basically all about. So I would encourage you to talk about how you will seek out interactions with individuals in your host country. So Gilman doesn't necessarily want you to go abroad and go to your courses throughout the day and then go home and sit in your dorm or your apartment and not kind of get those extra activities outside of school. So think about how you will have that, use those opportunities to meet new people. A really great way to do this is kind of think about things that you already enjoy and activities and events that you might want to pursue while you are abroad. So say you like to play an instrument. Maybe you can find a group that you can join that would allow you to continue to do that while you're abroad, or you could maybe there's a particular symphony that you want to go to or something like that. So think about things that are unique to you, that are memorable, and that will kind of stand out in terms of who you are and the things that you're interested in. And then Olivia spoke a little bit about this earlier. Gilman really wants to help students who have been historically underrepresented in education abroad to study abroad, but they don't necessarily know if you are part of these categories unless you tell them, right? And so Gilman specifically gives preference to veterans of the military. And probably in that, this is a bad example, because probably in that situation, they actively say, are you a military veteran? But let's say you're a first generation student. I don't know that they're necessarily going to ask you, are you a first generation student? They may in the application. I don't think they do. But if they do, that's great. But if not, you want to make sure that you tell them, because they're not, again, you don't get to have an interview. You don't get to follow up with more information. So make sure that you speak about these experiences that you've had in your essays at some point. And then there's also, just quickly, there's also a list of countries that are kind of underrepresented in study abroad that I know Gilman has on their website. So if you are going to France or Spain, or a very, very common country in terms of study abroad, that probably isn't relevant there. But if you're going to a country that you don't hear of a ton of students that study abroad, where they go study abroad in particular countries, then you can check the Gilman website and see if it's possible that you're kind of in one of those countries that they might give a little bit more preference to, if that makes sense. Okay, and then a very unique aspect of the Gilman application is that they have you do what's called a follow-on service project proposal. And so basically what they are wanting you to do is to design a project that when you return from study abroad will help you market and increase the knowledge of both study abroad and Gilman in a particular population. So there is a list of examples on Gilman's website. So you can, work with the study abroad office to do presentations like this one. That's a great example. You could go into your high school if you know that there's a lot of students that when you were in high school, a lot of students that didn't necessarily think that they would study abroad in college. Maybe you could go to your high school and do a presentation. Some students like to do some type of like digital marketing. So maybe you want to start a newsletter that you can send out about your experience. But basically, they want you to go out and be representatives of Gilman and let students know that Gilman is an opportunity for students who want to study abroad, and that study abroad is an option for all students. So some tips in terms of your follow-on service projects. Like I said, check out the list of example projects on Gilman's website. Be creative. This time last year when we were talking about these projects, we had no idea COVID-19, well, we knew it was a thing, but we did not know how it would affect our lives. So, we have completely changed how we teach and we learn, and higher education has changed over the past year. So it's a great time to be creative and think of some options in terms of reaching even a bigger population. Make sure your project is promoting Gilman and international education. Be specific about your targeted audience and your partners for your project. So think about, if you are already connected with, if you're a business major and you're already connected with a student organization in the College of Business, maybe you work with your advisor in that organization and you do a presentation and get word out about Gilman through that. But you want to make sure that you know exactly how you will market what you are going to do to other students. So I've had students before, for instance, that say, well, I'm going to do a blog and I'm going to kind of share my experience. Well, that's great. And that could definitely be a project that you could pursue. But how are you going to get that out to other students, right? Are you going to send that out through your college's weekly newsletter? Are you going to work with your particular college to get kind of featured on their website? How are you actually going to get that information out to other students? So that's this is something that they want you to be able to do. I think that the process is they want you to be able to do it within 6 months of returning from your study abroad. So you want to be creative and come up with something, but you also want to do something manageable in terms of that 6-month period. So that is an aspect that I think is pretty unique to Gilman. So, and that is all I have, I believe. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Anything? Did we have?
What was the website that we can look at to see possible destinations?
Sure. If you just go to, it's gilmanscholarship.org. That's the main Gilman website. And they have all kinds of information. And they also have really great resources in terms of, they have videos that they've done from other students that have done the Gilman, they have all kinds of great resources on that website. But there should be a list on that website somewhere of kind of preferred countries. And if you, for some reason, you can't find it, let me know and I can try to help you dig.
Will do. Thank you.
Sure.
So as a reminder, the deadline for this summer, fall, winter, and next spring is March 2nd. That's not too far away. So this is something that I completely believe students can complete between now and March 2nd if you're interested. But if you need more time, they have another deadline in October. So this is something that, if you want to do it now, especially if you want to try and go abroad this summer, you need to start working on it now, because in order to apply for Gilman, you need to have a program in mind. If you don't know what programs are out there, that's fine. Contact me and we will look at programs, or I'll connect you with your advisor so you can look at programs with them. I know with COVID, there may be some questions about, well, should I even try to study abroad right now? Our answer from our office is if you are interested, you should apply. There are a lot of safety features in place to make sure that you take zero liability for financial obligations. Like our office will not charge you anything until we know for sure that you can go. So if you want to, then come talk to us and let's work through the application process. Now, if you're thinking about a fall program, then you still have time. Now, that time is to choose a program, that time is April 1st, but for the Gilman, it's still March 2nd. So you need to come and talk to us ASAP. But COVID's changing every day. We are working as quickly as we can to make sure to give you all the most updated information. Just ask us. If you want to do spring 2022 instead of this summer, totally fine. Just let us know. We are here to make this about you and your experience and what you want. So we will give you honest, genuine advice. If we feel like you are trying to force in this summer, then we'll tell you that. We'll say, maybe it's not worth trying to force it this summer. Let's wait until next summer. That way you have more time to apply for scholarships. You can look at more programs. You have more opportunities because not all of our programs are open this year. That's just the reality. So if you're worried about deadlines, if you're worried about COVID, please come talk to my office, to me, to your EA advisor, because we are more than happy to help to give you specific advice based on your situation and what you're interested in.
And I put my email address in the chat again, just so you all have it. And so and I will put Olivia's in there as well. Are you just Olivia.Ellis?
Yeah, I just put it in there.
Okay. Knowing me, I would give out your wrong email. So if you are at the point where you're planning to apply for the Gilman and you are thinking about these essays, please feel free to reach out to me. Or if you have any other award that you're interested in, we have kind of a core list of awards that we work with, but every single week we have students that say, hey, I'm planning to apply for this and we've never heard of it before, but a lot of our advice can be relevant to lots of different opportunities. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I am happy to help. Does anybody else have any final questions or anything?
So Alexis put in the chat, should we specify in the essay which term we want to use the scholarship? They will ask you in your application what your program name is and when you're going abroad, as well as some other details. They can be, how Gilman classifies like winter programs especially can be kind of weird compared to how we classify them. So I echo Emily on, if you have any questions, even if your question is, what term am I going? Is this short or long? What country do I like? Any question, ask us. We will not judge you. We are only here to support you.
Okay. Well, if that is it, we will go ahead and let you all go. Thanks for joining us on this cold, snowy morning. Hope you all are staying inside and warm and dry. Oh, do we have one more question? Oh, thank you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to either one of us. And we're so thankful and happy that you were here this morning to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.